Welcome, guys. Today's homework is Mrs. Robles talking about rounding numbers. The first thing I want to look at today is what does it mean to round a number? When rounding and using a number line, you must first select a range of numbers that belong on the number line. This depends on which place value you're rounding to. For example, if you're rounding 23 to the nearest tens, there, your range needs to start and end with a multiple of 10. For 23, the beginning point is 20 and the end is 30 because 23 is in between 20 and 30 when rounding to the nearest tens. Once you place your numbers on the number line, you look to see if the number you are rounding is closest to a multiple of 10 to the left or to the right. First, count the number of spaces it takes to get from 23 back to 20. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to count to see how many spaces from 23 to 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jumps. Now we're looking to compare which one took less time to get to. I can get from 23 to 20 much faster than I can from 23 to 30. So it is closer to 20 than to 30. That's where our rhyme comes in. When you look to the right, you see the 3. If it's 5 or above, we're going to shove it to 30. If it's 4 or below, we're going to let it go down to 0. So in this case, we're going to let it go. Our answer is 20. Rounding to the nearest 10, for 23, we get 20. So 23 rounded to the nearest tens is 20. Now let's look at one in the hundreds. If you are rounding 287 to the nearest hundreds, your range needs to start and end with a multiple of 100. And each tick line has a value of 10. For 287, the beginning point is 200. The end point is 300. See, we see 200, so we know it's either going to go down and stay at 2 or go up to 3. So it's either going to be 200 or 300 for my answer. The beginning point is 200, the end is 300 because 287 is in between 200 and 300 when rounding to the hundreds place. Remember, once you place your numbers on the number line, you look to see if the number you are rounding is closest to a multiple of 100 to the left or the 100 that's above it to the right. Remember, in this case, we're rounding to the nearest 100. To check yourself, you will count the number of spaces it takes to get from 287 to 200, and then to how many spaces up to 300. Well, if I go all the way down to 200, I'm going to subtract to find out, I would jump 87 times. But to go up to 300, I would only jump 13 times. So I'm closer to 300. In this case, we could use the same rule we did in class also, though. When I look at the number 287, I look at the 8, because I'm rounding to the nearest hundreds. I look to the right at the 8. If it's 5 or above, I give it a shove up. 4 or below, I let it go. And in this case, 8 is above 5, so I'm going to go up to 300. So 287 rounded to the nearest hundreds is 300. This time I want to round 153 to the nearest 10. You'll need to watch out because on the test it won't always be to the greatest place value. Sometimes you're going to round to something in between. So if I'm going to round to the nearest 10, I know I need to find the 10 that goes before it and the 10 that goes after to decide which I'm using. In this case, 150 is the 10 before 153. 160 is the 10 after. So I count my jumps again. 1, 2, 3 jumps away, 3 from 150, and I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 jumps away from 160. So I'll also use my rule. If I'm rounding to the nearest 10, I look to the right, so I'm going to look, here's my eyeball, I'm going to look at the 3. If it's 5 or above, I give it a shove, but it's not. It's 4 or below. I'm going to let it go. So I'm going to round it to 150. I'm going to let the 3 go and leave it as 150. Let's try another one. I know I need to round to the nearest 10. That's what's underlined. First, I determine the range my number will be in. It's either going to be rounded down to 780 or up to 790 because those are my two tens. 700 is going to stay the same. That's why I put a star there. But the two tens to choose from will be either 80 or 90. So following our rules, we'll look at 789. I need to move it. It's not letting me, sorry. I'm going to put 789 where it goes on the number line. Hold on one moment. Had a little technical glitch there, guys. I'll move 789 on the number line. I see that it is much closer to 790. I also, by my rule, will look at 789. I'm rounding to the nearest 10, so here's my eyeball. I look to the right. 9 is 5 or above, so I'm going to give it all a shove. My 10s has got to go up, and my 9 will change to a 0. So it'll round to 790. Let's look at one more example. This is our last example today. What place value am I rounding to? Well, the number is 2,286. They've underlined the 2, so I'm rounding to the nearest hundreds. That means I know, I'll put a star here, that my 2,000 will stay the same. Nothing's going to change. The only thing in question is whether that 2 is going to go up to 300 or stay down at 200. I already know my 2,000 stays the same. So based on a number line, I see and label this number line, and I find that 2,286 would be somewhere in here. It's obviously closest to 2,300. If I use our little poem as our rule, I would look to the right. I'm rounding to the nearest hundred. So I'm looking at the 8. It's 5 or above, so I'm going to shove it up to 9, turn the 6 into a 0, and I end up with a mistake, class. I can't believe I just said that. I'm rounding to the nearest hundred. 2,286. I'm deciding on rounding the hundred, so I look to the right at my 8. It's 5 or above, so I'm giving my 2 a shove, and these turn into 0. 2,300 is my answer. Considering I got all mixed up and probably confused you too, let's do one more after all. We're going to look at 1,735. First, we think which place value we need to round to. I know I'm rounding to the nearest hundred. So I'd want to make sure I actually label my number line. 1,700 I know is my lowest point, and my highest would be then 1,800 because I know that that's the two choices I have for rounding. Next, I go ahead and place my number on the number line. That's 1,710, 1,720, 1,730, and in between is 35. And I see that this number is much closer to 1,700 than it is to 1,800. I also can use my rule much better than I did before, hopefully. It's the hundreds I'm rounding to, so I use my eyeball right there. I look to the right. 3 is below a 5, so I leave it all alone. These go to 0, and I round it, and it turns into 1,700 for my estimate. Well, guys, I'm sorry about confusing you. I know this has been a long lesson. You have a nice evening and rest. Don't forget to work on your spelling and your reading tonight as well. Sorry that Riley missed you. I couldn't find videos of her, and I'll work on it for next week. Bye now.